Adopted 6 children.
This is the Spinner Rack.
All right, so everybody, welcome to Spinner Rack. Today I'm here with Petey, and we're talking about Umbrella Academy. Is this a hit or is this a miss? I gotta say, the setup is this is a comic book from Dark Horse.
Yes.
And they made it into a Netflix show. And let me tell you one thing: the production value on this show is off the chain.
You see where the money is coming from the other shows that they've canceled and they put into this show.
I'm telling you that Netflix is definitely trying to develop their own superhero universe outside the Marvel DC realm. And I gotta say, if the amount of money they put into this, I gotta see what they can do with the Mark Miller stuff when that stuff hits up.
Well, they don't have the Rob Liefeld stuff anymore, thank goodness. So,
can we go through one show, one taping without talking about Liefeld? All right, but here, Umbrella Academy it is. It's basically a group of kids who were born on one day. Sometimes they were born at the exact same time. Their mothers really got pregnant like within 15, 20 minutes?
All right. Let's be a little more exact about it.
Okay.
There were 14 mothers.
43.
No, those are.
I said in the beginning there were 43 kids who were born at this date.
And there were 7. No, he bought or adopted 7. And it's this millionaire philanthropist who was.
His name is Hargraves.
And he basically brought these kids up, but then they're not saying how these kids gain powers.
Well, he knew they had powers because he brought them up to be superheroes. And the reason is, why did he form the superhero group, which he called the Umbrella Academy? And I guess that comes back from his business, which was originally, I guess, umbrellas.
Yeah.
So Umbrella Academy, and that's where it comes out there.
Well, this story is sort of playing to the adult fans because there's a lot of, there's so many stories right now that are like the X-Men. You have Deadly Class. You have the X-Men movies. You have, there's so many school things. You even have, which goes in, because X-Men was before the Harry Potter. And the X-Men movies started to play that there was a regular school with a ton of students. So you had Harry Potter. You have magicians that plays up the schools. And this is no different. But this is sort of taking the school aspect and doing like the Watchmen with a private school, which what the X-Men used to be, of like 5 students. So and the X-Men had 7 students total, so before it went to the new X-Men. So this is almost close to saying, hey, let's do the original model with a little Alan Moore-isms in it. But you even have a what's the name? Well, I forget which number he is, but he's even like the comedian. This guy with the knives who's able to throw knives. Diego.
Right. And so what the question comes up is, what happens to them after they grow up? Do they stay attached to this guy Hargreaves, who was their mentor and their adopted father, or not? And you come to see that there's a very complicated relationship, because he didn't show them, or at least they didn't think he showed them love. He treated them just as objects, as things to be done.
He didn't show them love. That was the hard part, except for, there's some that feel, there's some mysteries going on that we don't know about. We don't know how the big guy got big. We don't know. The hard part is Ellen Page. There she goes in there. She's the one that they keep kind of dumping on because she has no powers. But, of course, that's going to lead to something that we know. Then if you move over, we have someone who hasn't grown up that's right here. And they all go by their numbers to show the detachment that
he never gave them names.
Yeah, but they took names. They took names.
So you have the instance where Klaus, the one right here, Klaus is this one here, the one in the pink boa constrictor.
Oh my gosh.
He can see the dead.
We got him right over there. Goodbye.
Diego has the ability to throw knives and hit whatever target. You have Luther, who's in green, and he's the number 1. He was the one who was favored most by
supposedly favored.
And he has, I don't think he's giving anything away, but there's something about him that caused him to be that large.
He blew up.
Something that his adopted father did. And the one here disappeared for, I think, 43 years.
Yes.
And has come back. But he lived a life as an adult. And now when he came back to the past, he went into the future, lived there for 43 years, and came back to the past. He has a background as an assassin, so he's really a 53-year-old man or 50-year-old man in the body of a 13-year-old. and then you have
Supposedly, but it's like,
sister.
well, sister that's behind you.
The sister who is
She's
the movie star and has the power of suggestion.
yes.
And I think those are the ones who have power. There was one who was there before. He was Ben. He was an
But-
Asian character, and he had the ability to utilize like
Well,
a tentacle monster.
He's seemingly the most powerful one because he didn't want to use his powers, but he shows up so we can see the one with the boa can see him, and that's how we know what his powers are.
And but the one with the boa's powers we don't know is undefined because the father tried to get him to control his fears. Because the one with the boa, Klaus, he can see the dead, and so that frightens him. So he numbs.
But
him
he
by taking
can't. At
drugs
this
to
point, he's not. We don't know that if he's seeing his father.
Right. So he's having a hard time seeing his father initially.
Mm-hmm.
Lastly, we have Vanya. Vanya is the one who is the Ellen Page. I guess that's what you.
That's what I was talking
Yeah,
about
Ellen
earlier.
Page. She is the one who doesn't have powers, and she's kind of being dumped on. The father wants
But
to.
it's a setup. It's a setup. They're clearly trying to set us up
We
to
will tell you
believe
the
that.
spoilers later on, but.
No, I'm saying that's not a spoiler. I'm just saying that if
So-
they're telling you that she's nobody, she's playing the violin, and all this stuff is happening, and we don't key into why she has no powers, but they're making too much of a big deal of it. So
the catalyst of all this is that the father dies, and so they come back to try to figure out why he died. They've all been living separate lives. Luther's been on the moon.
Luther comes back and he's more wanting to try to investigate it, but
Diego-
Diego said, no, there's nothing to it. There's nothing to
He
it. He
just
said, and Luther says, hey, but he always had his monocle, which obviously if you died or killed, it could have fallen out and slid somewhere. But
Right.
then
But it's missing.
it's a missing, and then they sort of reveal a bit about that. But that I think is another trying to lead you the other way. So it's a lot of things. Whereas Diego has a history with the police. There's a bunch of things, and then they also have people hunting them. You can't have a good mutant superhero thing without having people hunting you.
And
We
you
get
know
our
those
good
people?
old,
Mary
J.
J.
Blige.
Blige.
Let's
She does
get
the
a crunkophone on the phone. It's in this. But I mean, it's been taking her a long time to get to this period where she's a solid actress. I mean, okay act, not solid, but she's been good in the stuff she's in, and this is no different.
And I think this is like her second Netflix show, so clearly Netflix likes people and is keeping.
No,
her-
I mean, but she has very famous friends. She's friends with Oprah. She's friends with
But this
she's
show-
friends with Oprah, Tom Hanks, that whole big crew.
Right,
So it's
but I'm
like,
saying, but she's been picked. She did in this movie. This show, she's done a pretty good job. At.
yeah,
You know, I mean, she's
she's
funny,
good on
she's
camera. Yeah,
Not hard to look at. You know, so what
Yeah.
can you say?
and and she's also internet crazed because many of her dance moves get turned into Jedi moves. So, but I'm on the fence. I think it is a fun show, but it's a little quirky, and I mean it's stylized, so it looks really good. But it's almost as if Alan Moore decided to do the X-Men, or with sort of like. No, because Grant Morrison still played with the leads. He didn't really go. He had a big school. Grant Morrison did have a big school in X-Men, but we didn't like. Now Bendis did the whole school sort of thing. But this is the quirky aspect, and I think like Grant Morrison or Alan Moore, this is sort of right up their lane. So we're getting sort of that something what the adult fans really like.
Right. So I mean, yeah, it's another take on a superhero genre. You know, basically, it's the same ploy, but I'm saying you don't see the quirkiness played out with the amount of money that Netflix has thrown behind.
Yeah,
this.
they're doing a lot of money.
Say with money. I mean,
Yeah.
Netflix has thrown cash at this. There are 10 episodes. I can't imagine they haven't spent a pretty penny on this. There are millions, probably tens
But
of millions.
ultimately, in my mind, you know, the Umbrella Academy isn't that big of a comic book.
It isn't.
So
But is it that big of a deal as a show? And that's what you have to
no,
look
the
at.
show is going to be bigger.
And so-
But they could have decided they don't have to necessarily. Well, this is what the Matrix did, which is a good thing because instead of having to read a script and saying I don't know how it works, so they said I think Will Smith actually owned up to the Wachowski brothers saying we're going to have you do moves where you stop in the air and we'll be able to see you from every angle.
Right.
But they sounded like whoa, it's going to be so cool, and he was like they sound like it's unbelievable. But at the same time, they had a comic book drawn for it to show the producers and say, here's the angles. This is some of the things that are going to happen when it's in slow motion. You'll see this, and the artist drew that. And that's what you're getting when people look at these comic properties. And even if they throw out some of it, it's storyboard already. You got the angles, you got the mystique of how these characters are going to look. So it's like you can just almost copy that. And people who are fans that I know have said they've changed some things, but they like what the changes are. But I'm just adding in is that as producers,
you found people who were fans of the comic.
I know one person. I found one person who knew what it was.
This was not a huge Dark Horse comic.
But let's
call it what it is. You know.
I mean, most of the stuff from Dark Horse, the biggest thing would be Hellboy. No, I mean Alien was already before that. That's a licensed sort of property. But Hellboy made the break to movies. The Mask. I think those are their two big things.
Right, but Alien vs. Predator were two separate titles, and they brought them together. That's what I'm trying to say. And I'm saying that they kept it in print for how many years that people.
But it was the comics spun off of, like, Dark Horse is the exception to what Star Wars was in the comic, where Star Wars, they were at some point. They wanted to rebuild, in the comic, they wanted to rebuild a Death Star. And this is before The Empire Strikes Back, or before Jedi. And they're like, no, you can't do that. And the next year you see that in the movie. In Dark Horse, they did the Predator in L.A., and that became the movie, not the same exact story, because it was Dutch's brother in the comic story, and then it was just an L.A. cop and Danny Glover. So in my mind, it's loosely based. It's not really based on it. They did only whether they wanted. I'm just saying, you're not saying that, hey, this, that, and they're like, oh, this comic property would make a good movie. No one knew. Not many people besides us in the comic world knew that there was a Predator comic before Predator 2. So
I mean, the question is whether or not you should watch this show or not. I'm of the opinion that you should watch it. I think it's entertaining. I think it definitely brings a new, some nuance to the comic book genre. There is, like I said, Deadly Class is very similar. Watch that too, and I will do a review of that later on another day. It's just a pretty interesting take of this whole thing, where I think in Deadly Class they're actually in school going through the process. They're a villain, whereas here you actually have them. They've grown up, but they have flashbacks of them going back and doing what they're doing. They're very famous.
Past stories.
These are well-known characters. Everybody knows who they are. They're heroes for some they're not. Vanya wasn't, but she wrote a tell-all book, which kind of brought the fame of the family down and exposed their secrets and stuff like that. But I say go watch it. I think it's interesting to go. What do you say, P?
I say watch it. It's just one of the things of, pick. I mean, it's a good title also. So, but then there's also other stuff that I liked that was in the 90s or later that they're saying, why not pick these books? But, they pick what they pick.
I agree with you. So, Spinnerack out.